I'm a founder of a 15-year-old nonprofit and have given so much to this organization over the years that it's tough to even put into words. As I get older, more people in our organization seem to be bringing up succession planning and asking me what my retirement date is. I keep wondering if I might be getting pushed out. There's so many jokes and so much talk about founder's syndrome, and I grow tired of it. Shouldn't the founder always have a role with the very organization they created? This seems like a no-brainer, but clearly others see it differently. What am I missing? What ways have you seen a founder's role evolve while still staying connected to their organization?
Oh, there's a lot to unpack here, and there's a lot I want to say. I guess I first want to say I'm sorry it feels that way. And I think it's easy to personalize things when you are a founder. This is your baby. And so you're feeling like this idea about succession planning and retirement date is probably more the organization really just trying to make sure it is prepared for the future, right? And that it's a good board will be asking these things because they realize that could be a huge risk to the organization if you as founder leave and there isn't any succession planning. So I think the first thing I would say is to try not to feel like you're being pushed out. It's probably someone who really cares deeply about the organization and wants to see what you started, like the legacy continue. And I think that with founders, I mean, I know I've said this before, but like I feel like founders' greatest gifts are also their greatest liabilities, if that makes sense. Like, I think that as a founder, you see a gap, you want to fill it, right? You are like tenacious about filling it. This is what I see in a lot of founders, right? I joke, I'm like, you're like a dog with a bone and you're like, I'm going to figure it out. And, and that is both a gift and can be a liability at times and can sort of have pros and cons for the organization long term. So I think one of the things that you could do to stay connected to the organization is to think about, do you take a break? So when you are kind of at that stage where you retire or whatever, like you say, hey, peace out. There was a short period of overlap with the incoming person. I think that's healthy, but not too long because that is confusing for everybody. And then I think you maybe are on contract. Oftentimes organizations put then founder or whoever was paid staff person that's departing on contract for a set number of days to be available. If questions arise, if things arise. And then after that, I think then some clean separation, like you could still donate, you could do that. You could still, if you want to do boots on the ground volunteering, you could do that. But as far as any kind of leadership role, like moving to the board, which is what you hear people say, or, something like that, I think it is best to give that at least a 1 year, if not longer window to let that new person kind of establish themselves. And that new person, if they are smart, will still reach out to you because they know you were like just to keep you, like to say, hey, like, I'm thinking about this, what do you think? And just sort of to still keep you engaged, but on a less formal basis. You become if you were to move on to the board right away, it becomes really difficult for the incoming executive director because then the board like is now deferring to the founder that serves on the board and not like, and so then it becomes almost the founder against you. Like it could get really messy really quickly. So, I think that you just really have to realize that there is absolutely a role. You don't have to totally go away, but that role needs to be incredibly intentional and incredibly about the organization and not you. And it has to be the greater good of what is the best for this organization. And it is easy as a founder to start to your identity is so intertwined that it's easy to look at what's best for you, but it's still separate. And so like what's best for the organization. And that probably means some degree of separation for a while, but like I said, the separation doesn't have to be like totally. You can still you could still do those things that are not leadership related. So that's my thought. I don't know. What about you, Andy?
No, I could not agree more. I think you hit it on the head. The You have to look at it in terms of your mission. Like, what's the point of your organization overall? And is what you're doing, like, so right now, I'd say that if I were to ask, you would say that the best thing for the organization is for you to remain in charge. That there's no one that can take your place and do as good a job as you, because you founded it, it's your idea, you know how everything's supposed to go. This is sort of my organization, and so we have to run it the way I ran it, because after 15 years we're successful and we're doing things well. I'd say that you need to remember that you didn't start a private company. You didn't start an LLC. You started a public nonprofit. And part of the public charity thing means that your job is the caretaker of the idea. Your job is to make sure that this thing is set up for success, to be able to serve whatever mission it is that your organization is set up to serve. And yes, you may be the right person. You may be the best person to do this, but people don't live forever. And people generally, in my experience, once they're in their 90s, they usually die. So you have to remember that you cannot do this forever. And if you really truly believe in the cause and you really do think that you are the best person for this job, one of the things you need to add to your list of infinite tasks is to figure out how it survives without you. And this should be like a something that you do intentionally, not something that accidentally happens when you have a stroke and then nobody can contact you because you're in the hospital and you're incapacitated. You need to think about, is this something that I want to have continue after I pass? And if so, how do I make sure that happens? That needs to be a active task that you're working on now. And I suspect that as you continue to work on that task over time, you will realize that many of the things that you think you're the only person that you can do is just because you have done it, and you're probably not giving anybody the opportunity to learn it. So of course nobody else can do it, because you're the founder, you're doing it yourself. There's no reason to let somebody else do it. I mean, I know I personally have this challenge, and I know lots of people that are similar to me do, which is like, oh, just move. Just get out of the way. Let me do it. Come on. Like, I know it needs to be of a certain quality, and I know that I'm capable of providing that level of quality. And if I let you do it, I'm just going to have to fix it later. So just get out of the chair and let me do it. Right. And that's really not a good way to lead. That's a very sort of selfish way to lead. And I don't think that that's probably what you intend. So, thank you for your hard work over 15 years. Thank you for doing what you did to make your organization successful in the space that you're in. But it's time to think about, like, what's the future going to be like? Like, I can't do this forever. What's the future going to be like? And you want to do it while you're still thinking about it and still engaged, and not just exhausted and tired of everybody telling you that you're the founder and would you please just get out of the way. It's up to you to sort of craft how that narrative's going to go over the next 5-10 years.
I love that. And I also think the idea of writing that down, sort of how you envision the organization operating without you, is critically important. And I think it's not just about this plan on paper. I just got done with an organization's succession plan, both like an anticipated succession plan and emergency succession plan, that I was working with a small board committee and their executive director on. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the way they approached the process, I mean, the entire process from start to finish, thinking through all the details, was about 9 months. So it wasn't rushed. It wasn't just like, let's have a plan. The board listened deeply to what the executive director said in those meetings, and the executive director listened deeply to the board. And there was a lot of self-reflection about how strong is the organization right now if the ED were gone tomorrow, right? Like, because succession planning isn't just that paper. It's about how you are building a super strong organization. And the board during this process actually had some reflection where they said, we're not as strong as we need to be to make this successful for an incoming ED. Like, we need to get our act together. And that is so rare to find boards have that degree of self-reflection. But I'll tell you what, I was so confident in where they're going by the time we ended this, kind of this project, because I was like, they are asking the hard questions and they are thinking through the hard things, and thinking about how do we structure the organization today and tomorrow and in the next year, 2, 3 years, so that we are like as well positioned as possible to attract the next amazing leader. And that is rare to find that, but it does exist. And I think it exists when you start and you're not rushed, because when you're rushed, to your point, Andy, like, and when you throw it together, or you've not like done the work to create a strong organization, then that becomes more of a new person coming in, and it's a turnaround situation, right? The new ED comes in, inherits a mess, has to turn it around. And oftentimes the same person who does that is going to be a different person than the one who's going to lead the organization long term. It's like a true turnaround ED kind of thing. And so I think there's sometimes you get someone who can do both, but I think there's intentionality and not pushing this off. And I get it, right? Like every nonprofit we know, Andy, has 100 things on their plate and they're trying to juggle it all. And this is the one that gets pushed back because it's kind of like, I don't have time for this. I got a million other fires. And yet, if you're talking about risk management and long-term sustainability, this should probably be really high on that priority list.
Nonprofit governance.
Nonprofit answers.
Nonprofit board.
Nonprofit management.
Nonprofit marketing.
Nonprofit resources.
Welcome to Nonprofit Everything, the podcast where hosts Andy Shurick and Stacey Wedding answer your questions about all things nonprofit.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nonprofit Everything. I'm Andy Shurick. I'm here with Stacey Wedding, and we're here to help answer nonprofit questions. So the way this works is you send us questions. You can do that at questions@nonprofiteverything.com, or hit us up on social media, or find us literally any other way. And we will do our best to get those questions answered. If Stacey and I can't do it, we will go and rope in some experts. Send us questions that are hard. Send us questions that are easy. Send us questions that you think you already know the answer to, but you want us to answer anyway, just to see if we get it wrong. We could do that too. We really appreciate that you've taken the time to listen to the podcast. Please let us know. Is there something we can do differently? Something we can do better that you'd like us to do? We need that feedback. That's the way we make the podcast better. And with that, we're going to jump right in. When everything is important and urgent and you're the only person who can do the long list, how do you decide where to spend your time? And when you've decided that, how do you keep the voice in your head that reminds you of all the projects you're not doing from distracting you?
Well, if I had this figured out, I'd be a lot more sane person. So I think that I get this. I get this feeling. I get the feeling of overwhelm, but I also want to push you a little bit. When you say you're the only person who can do kind of this long list, I really want to push that a little bit and challenge your thinking on that a little bit, because very rarely are you the only person who can do the long list. Now, what you might be saying is that you are a one-person shop in an organization, but I also go, there's other people. There's if I don't know. I'm going to make a lot of assumptions. Let's say you're a single person ED, right? Or you've got just a super small staff. I mean, you can think about volunteers. You can think about, are there board members who maybe can help you and guide you? You can think about contracted support that doesn't cost as much as a full-time staffer. So I guess I would say, I want to, that wasn't your question, but I guess I would just say, think about that and really check yourself on that, because I think it's a dangerous trap to get into when we're like, hey, I'm the only person who could do the long list. So I would like to, for your sanity and long-term success, like think about that moving forward. And I think at the end of the day, this comes down to, prioritization. I heard an analogy years ago about someone who said, it's like you're juggling balls, and then someone keeps throwing another like the object of the game is not to keep 5, 7, 8 balls in the air. The object of the game is to like make intentional decisions about which balls you're going to keep and which you're going to drop, and just being really like knowing there's only limited time and resources. So I think it kind of goes back to the like, are you the only one who can do it? Is it something you can drop or dump? Is it something you can delegate, or is it something you can delay? Because sometimes we get into this mindset of everything has to happen immediately, and it doesn't. Or we can say not now, but in the future. So I think those are some of the kind of strategies I would use around it. And at the end of the day, it's going to have to it's going to really boil down to prioritization and being okay with, I'm not going to get it all done. The other thing that comes to mind when I think about this question is the fact that obviously you need to take care of the immediate, like urgent needs first. If the organization doesn't have money, then nothing else matters, right? So like, I think like you've got to kind of like raise it to that level when you're prioritizing what you're going to work on. But I also think sometimes we all run into this pattern of trying to make things perfect instead of good enough, right? So sometimes that leads to things taking longer than they need to. And I'm super guilty of this. So I speak from experience that something that someone else will get done in an hour will take me 3 because I keep tweaking it or wanting to make it a little better. And that at the end of the day, most of the time, that little better was more for me and not for no one else really expected that or needed that. So I think thinking about sometimes good enough is good enough. And it doesn't, that's not always the case, but there's probably more of that as you think about this could kind of give you a little mental peace. I don't know how you get the voice to stop in your head. I mean, I don't know how you do that, right? I feel like, gosh, I could say something super inappropriate about, I don't know, some kind of a drug to help you do that. But no, I know that there are ways, and there's a lot of like mindset practices and sort of meditation and things that people much smarter than me have coached me on over the years, and they help, and sort of some some mantras or some things I can say about you do what you can do and all that, but we need you to like last, as you're kind of you're one of our one of our world's superheroes, and so we need you to sustain, and so it's going to sustain by prioritization, not doing it all and not making it all perfect. So that's spoken from someone who lives that journey daily, but also from what I see effective leaders do well. What do you think, Andy?
No, you're. I think prioritization is probably the key for me. I mean, I think like human brains did not evolve to do any of this. Like we are just straight up not the right organism to be able to think about things like prioritization, long tasks, getting things scheduled appropriately, because what our brains are the reason that you're being distracted by the voice in your head that's telling you all the stuff that you're not doing is because it's impossible to keep that many things in your brain at once. And so you're sort of always in this kind of panic mode about all of the stuff that you're forgetting to do, which is going to become a fire later on. It's going to be you're already sort of setting yourself up by having a lot of things to do and knowing that you're the one that can do them. You're setting yourself up for like a constant stream of panic. So the way that we get out of that constant stream of panic is, number one, to create a system, some sort of organizational system that lets you get it all out of your brain and somewhere else. So like if you're the CEO of a very large nonprofit, you have an executive assistant, and you use the executive assistant to sort of maintain your brain for you, to make sure that you're always doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, and that you don't forget the things that you said you were going to do, like go get lunch with the donor or something like that, right? There's always somebody who's managing your schedule for you. And that's why an executive assistant for an ED is a really important role. If you're not lucky enough to have that, you need to put that together for yourself. You need to come up with some way that you can get all this stuff out of your brain and either on a piece of paper or computer software or something like that. So that, I mean, I used paper. Actually, I use an electric notebook now, which then I transcribe onto paper, because things come to pop into my brain and I just need them written down, because if I don't, they'll just irritate me and then I can't get anything else done. I'm always like, well, this is the thing I need to do. And by putting it down on paper and then the writing next to it, like what the priority is, or is there a deadline attached to it or something like that, then I know, okay, it's down. I got it. It's on the paper. I'm good to go. I can move on. And then, so my system, which works for me because squirrel, full-time squirrel brain. Like right now it's raining and I could barely have a conversation with Stacey right now because the rain is happening outside. Like this is the hardest thing for me to do. So for me, like having dedicated squirrel time, like in my day to do something that isn't related to anything I'm supposed to be doing, which kind of allows me to sort of release some of that extra energy that I've got that I need to do something else with. But then it's all written down and scheduled so that there's like, I know I've got a 15-minute, after we're done with this, I've got a 15-minute break and I'm going to go do whatever I'm going to do, right? And that's fine. But all the other stuff is written down and I know when I'm going to do it. And then my personal system is, once a week, I take this giant list that I've generated of all the junk and I recopy it. I copy it again, number one, because I can't read my own handwriting and I need to like puzzle out what that scribble meant. And number two, it gives me an opportunity to recalibrate everything. So last week, this thing was not priority at all. This week, it's a big priority. I need to get this done. So it needs to be moved up the list. And when I was the CFO, when I had that job, people would like poke their head into my office and say, hey, can you do X? And I would just write it down on my list at the bottom. And then eventually it would get prioritized into where it was supposed to go. And after working at that job for years, there was stuff that had been on my list for the entire time that I'd been there because it never became important enough to ever get near the top of the list. It was on the list. And people would come in and say, hey, where are you with that? And I would look and I'd go, it's on the list. And that's all the information you're going to get from me. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to do it by a particular, unless it's important, it's never going to get any higher than, yeah, it's on the list, right? And you can, so that gives you sort of that peace of mind to be able to know that you're actively looking at all of the things that you're thinking of. They're written down someplace. And the fact that you had a dream and it bothered you in the middle of a dream, if you can get that written down, now it's on paper and you've given your brain that extra space to do something else with. You're not just trying to cram all of this information in one place where it just isn't very good at being, it's going to wake you up in the middle of the night. Like, oh man, that's that one thing that I didn't write down. That's going to wake you up in the middle of the night. And if you don't get good sleep, you can't perform well on anything. So just get it down on paper, whatever system you're using, and then just use that as your sort of external brain to keep track of all that stuff and prioritize it one at a time. Put down timing, tasks. Don't let people use more time that, if you're that busy, like schedule meetings that last 50 minutes instead of an hour. This is a weird trick, right? If you schedule it for 50 minutes, you've given yourself 10 minutes to like get your act together after the meeting was done, take notes, do the follow-up, get on with your day. And then the next one, if you've got your stuff scheduled back to back to back, that one goes over by 5 minutes. This person's late. You already feel like your day's getting away from you. So, make sure that you've got your sort of mental health baked into your system. And I think you're going to end up, happier, more content, feeling like you're getting more done, for sure.
I love the idea of a system, and you were just speaking, my love language with everything you were saying, Andy, because, I was thinking about my system, and I'm just sharing it because maybe this helps somebody, and I like you sharing your system. I think for each of us, it's different. And if it is something digital, great. But if it's something old school with paper, so every Sunday before the start of the work week, right, I look at all my meetings on the calendar and I create my to-do list for the week. And I literally slot out the stuff that's already on the calendar, as well as here's the things I need to do to either prep for that meeting or follow up from this meeting from last week or this project. And I put it all down and it's assigned day, right? And the stuff that is kind of what the challenge, what that I would say is, so all of that stuff is very important. What I have learned from this system, while it helps me, and then every day, because I like checking things off my list, at the end of the day, I look at it. So my system is great. I checked off these things and this one thing didn't get done. So I need to carry it over and put it somewhere else. And so then is there anything that could be moved from there? So I kind of rejigger during the week, but I do my best to sort of honor the system. A couple things that I do that I think are interesting for someone else to think about is your 15-minute idea is great. I also think allowing time every day for the things unexpected that come up that are on that are not on our to-do list, because that gets me, right? I have a whole day scheduled of these 5 things I need to do. And then there's someone with an emergency, or there's something unexpected personally that I have to take care of, right? Just life or business, or it's a true client emergency and I really need to help them out. And so that messes with me because I don't keep that free time, at least a little bit of free time. So I think that's a helpful thing to think about. And I also think the one final thing I wanted to say is I am really using more, and I think I'd encourage you to do it because it helps with the distraction, is the do not disturb feature on my computer and my phone. Because at the end of the day, I am not a brain surgeon. I am not doing something that is life or death. And if I am out of pocket, not accessible, looking at your emails, hearing the little dings that are whatever Pavlov thing, oh my gosh, it's like the Pavlov dog experiment. It's just kind of every time, right? That little tone rings, it's oh, I got to go look at it. And it's built, right? Everything in our society is designed when you read some of the articles about it. This is the way these systems are designed.
Yeah.
Right? It's so intentional. So guess what? I'm taking that power away from all those other systems and I am turning it off for 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is, because I need focused time. And you know what? It's been a game changer for me. I mean, I have to say, then I get a little sad when I go back and go, oh, look at all the emails. But it also helps people realize I am not quite as available. So you start to create your own pattern, right? If you respond right away, or some people then are oh, she's always going to respond right away. And you are kind of creating that. So I sometimes actually will intentionally say to myself, I need to wait. I am waiting a day. I will get back to them. My rule of thumb is I will get back to you in 1 business day. That's my personal goal. But I have to work at not always just responding right away to an email, because it's that system. It's the way I operate, but it's not healthy. And it creates all these unrealistic expectations with other people who work with me.
Yeah, when you said that you schedule unscheduled time for emergencies, I was going to say that because, and I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I do intentionally not respond quickly to things. And sorry, clients, if you're listening, which you probably aren't, but if you send me something and it's an emergency, you can call me on my phone. If it's truly an emergency, call me on my phone, I'll answer it and we'll deal with it. But don't send me an email and expect me to respond to you immediately, because I don't have my email turned on all the time. It isn't just in the background pinging away, because me, Mr. Squirrel, is oh, cool, something different to do, right? And my brain is immediately off my current task and I'm doing something new. So my email is not up all day. My email is up periodically when I need to check email. I don't have Teams turned on so people can ping me constantly on Teams and things like that. And part of it, so 2 reasons. 1, I know as a squirrel that I'm not capable of containing myself. And 2 is I don't want to train people to think that at any given time, my answers are going to be instantaneous, because I don't want to build up that expectation and then fail them later. I do use in email, I use the schedule send a lot. So if I am I happen to be in email and something pops up and I can respond to it immediately because I've got time booked to look at email right then, I will use schedule send and fire it off in an hour or 2 so that it doesn't immediately come right back to your inbox when you send it to me. And I also don't like sending people emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. Just because I did it at 2 o'clock in the morning doesn't mean I need to send it to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll schedule it to hit during business hours. So that's why if you get an email from me and it comes in at exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, that's why. Because I really did it at 3:30.
You know what? Funny story about that, Andy, because I use that. You're all getting, those of you listening are getting our behind the scenes dirty secrets,
yeah.
Right? But I have to tell you, Andy, I'm laughing about that because I do a lot of late night work and I schedule send for the 8 a.m. or whatever. And then someone, if they get it right then, oftentimes I'm in a meeting or I'm in a call or I'm doing something else. And then they call me because they just got it. They want to talk through it. And I'm not available for 2 hours. And I'm
right.
oops, you probably figured out what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a boss that was, I mean, she was notorious. She would wake up. She like had a super early day schedule, and she was up at like 4:15 in the morning, and the emails would start at 4:15. And so when you got into work, you may have like 8 requests already. There are 8 things that this person's already told me. And as a person who needs a little bit of coffee to get my brain going, like that was not my favorite. I was like, okay, I'm going to deal with you at 10:30. Congratulations, you made it to the end of another episode of Nonprofit Everything. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to the podcast. Thank you for sending in your questions. Thank you for suggesting guest experts. Again, the easiest way to do that, I think, is to go to the Nonprofit Everything webpage and click the Ask a Question button, and you can type it in right there. Or you can get to Stacey and I any other way that you can find us. We're everywhere, just like everyone else. So ask us those questions, and we will be back in 2 weeks and answer some more.